Powers, Ultimate Families, how everybody doing out there? Kwofi here. Today we're talking about fasting, right? We need to speak about fasting because it's critical to receiving optimal health. It's critical to healing the body, regenerating the body. It has a curative property to it. It has a curative element to it. It's very old tradition. It's a very old practice. And I'm going to break down the origins, the benefits, and the 4 steps and 4 stages, which is 8 completely different steps, and stages and steps is 2 different folds. And we're going to speak about the benefits that the human anatomy receives from it. Now, when we're dealing with the word fast, correct, and we're dealing with the word fasting, what we're dealing with is the origin, the Roman text, the Catholic text, the old Italian text of the word fasting. Fasting, which I will break it down for you here. Correct? This is where the word feast comes from. F-A-E-S-T. Correct? Fasting. This is where you hear Fastinians come from. The word feast is originated from the word feast. And when they were speaking about feast, what they were speaking about is the same thing that you are doing when you eat your first meal after the fast, which we call breakfast. Correct? Break fast. So this is where the word feast comes from, correct? The word fasting, the origin of the feast is secure, firm. In is singulative, correct? Meaning to secure or firm thyself, correct? And at this point in time, we start speaking about the pineal gland, but we'll speak about that down the road. So, we have to understand that there are multiple different forms of fast, correct? After a harvest in ancient days, after we would harvest our crops, we would go on a fast before the harvest because we would eat more during this period in time. Around the harvest is usually the next stage, right? We're speaking about climate, correct? Which is the same stage, as the harvest. But this is where the climate comes in, correct? It starts to get colder. They start to eat more, correct? So this is where the fast come in, making sure that they didn't get sick, making sure they didn't, making sure that they prepared before eating large amounts of food. The next stage was the solstice stage, correct? We would speak about lunar people. We would speak about solar people. But the solar people was following the solstice, correct? And they would have 3 to 4 different fasts yearly based off of the sun. You also get fasting in religion, correct? This is usually where a lot of us first heard about the term. And when you look it up, they speak about, in the Bible, they speak about quarantine. And this is where the word that we know of quarantine comes from today. Quarantine, when they speak about quarantine in the Bible, they're speaking about fasting. Jesus had 40 days, correct? This was abstaining from food for 40 days, so you can find fasting also in religious texts and Bible texts speaking about multiple times. Now, there's also different terminology when we speak about it. You should go to sleep on an empty stomach, and this is where the term "are you fast asleep" comes from. Fast asleep, correct? Now, fasting is found all throughout nature. Even animals fast. Horses go on multiple fasts a year. It's not as long as we conduct our fast, but they also go on fast a year. If your dog starts to eat grass or tries to eat different herbs or different plants, this is your dog preparing for a certain fast. And dogs usually use intermediate fasting or 1 to 2 days of fasting. If your dog stopped eating for a couple of days, it's going on a fast. This is what's going on, correct? Now, we have to understand that the 4 steps to fasting, correct? First, you're going to reduce the combination of eating. I call this collage eating, where you eat multiple different foods together, correct? You're going to reduce the combinations, whether you eat 4 foods in 3 meals, or you eat 5 foods in 4 meals. You're going to want to reduce that. First, you're going to want to reduce the amount of different collective foods that you're eating together. You're going to want to reduce that down to 1 food. And then at this point in time, this gives your body enough time to get rid of any excess garbage, and also only focus on one nutrient as well. Now, when we're talking about foods, this should be the fruit, correct? Because the fruit is a cleanser, and this is what the fast is made for. It's for reducing the reductions. It has a reduction system of all bile in the body, all toxins in the body, free radicals in the body, correct? And so what we have to do is reduce the combinations, correct? We have to stop the collage eating. The next stage we have to do is the juicing stage. And this is going to help the liver, correct? The liver is going to help flush out toxins in the body. The juicing stage, you should probably only deal with one juice at a time, whether it's orange juice or apple juice or papaya juice or mango juice. And we want to concentrate these juices, and you should usually have a digestive enzyme while you are using these juices, so it can break up the nutrients inside of the juice, and you can have a quicker digestive and deeper digestive system dealing with these juices, so you can begin to clean the body. Now, as I say, we reduced the combinations, correct? We went down to 1 to 2 foods, 1 to 2 times a day, and then you went to the juicing stage. The next stage is only eating that 1 fruit, correct? And this is all before the fast, which is critical steps to the fast. Once you eat that 1 fruit for a whole day, this is when the fast starts after that period. And we could talk about dry fasting, we could talk about water fasting, correct? At this point in time, we are abstaining from any solid foods for a controlled period of time. So what's going to start to happen is the first thing we're going to do is the weight is going to start to be affected, correct? You're going to start to lose weight, and this is what the benefits that a lot of us start to seek out. We're going to start to lose weight, correct? And what's happening is we're targeting the abdomen, correct? We're flushing between the kidneys and the liver. We're flushing all the toxins and extra bile of the body out. We're getting rid of all of the excess garbage of the body. Dr. Africa breaks it down as being a ship that's sinking. You're going to want to get rid of all of the heavier items first, all of the garbage items first, to keep the ship from sinking, correct? Ship being the body. The second thing is going to happen is the blood pressure. And at this point in time, we're dealing with the blood parameters. We start targeting things like inflammation and different complications like that. The blood pressure is going to start to reduce. And this is because the next 2 stages, which is targeting the glycemia, which is the presence of glucose inside of the body, and the ketone, which is found present inside of the body when you have low glucose inside of the body, correct? So these 2 is going to fluctuate, and it's going to help things like the diabetic syndromes and the osteoporosis and other cardiovascular diseases, and also clogging of the arteries and blood clots and different things like that, correct? So what's happening is that when you go on a fast, your body, if your body takes it as a crisis, what happens is you have adrenal glands that sits on top of your kidneys, and these adrenal glands is responsible for kicking adrenaline. When this adrenaline kicks, your kidneys, your liver, your spleen, your pancreas kind of goes into overdrive, and they have chemicals and substances that your body releases naturally to regulate this overdrive. But what happens is the adrenaline comes, and this is kind of a fight or flight type of mechanisms, right? Your body starts to become more intelligent. It starts to understand that it has a complication. It starts to recognize free radicals for being toxins. It starts to recognize if your spleen is having trouble, it needs a little bit more assistance. So what this is going to do is eventually is going to cure. This is where the curative properties come in. It's going to start curing and regenerating the body, correct, on its own. What it is apoptosis, and I speak about this before, whether you pronounce it apoptosis, whether you pronounce it apoptosis. What these do is find sick and unhealthy free radicals and cells in the body and eliminate them or manipulate them to either commit suicide or to become healthy and regenerate itself, correct? So a lot of people stay away from fasting because they believe they're going to starve. We have to understand that it's two different forms of this that we're speaking about. We're speaking about starvation diets, and we're speaking about fasting diet, fastinian diets, correct? Starvation diets is more of a Western knowledge type of information. The Europeans, as Dr. Africa speaks about as well, the Europeans have a psychological development thinking that anything and everything either has to be killed or is trying to kill us. So this is when you start hearing about the Western or European information speaking about starvation, or the body starts to eat itself. And that is false information. What that is a starvation diet when you are going long periods of time incorrectly with an untarget diet, and you're not drinking enough H2O, and you're not breathing, and you're not sun gazing, and you're not dealing with herbs as in a tea, tonic, or juice. Now, so what's going to happen around day 3 of the fast is at this point in time, your small intestines is going to be empty. And when your small intestines is empty, this is when the craving stops. So the idea of starvation is only present because you are hungry. See, now a lot of the time we confuse the feeling of digestion and having to go to the bathroom up. When we're going through a fast, it's intensified. So we have to start recognizing these feelings and notifications and reminders of the body when certain chemicals is released from the adrenal glands to help the kidney and the liver flush out toxins. We have to understand that we have to assist these movements as well. Now, going back to what I'm speaking about, the lunar people and solar people, I'm speaking about the Eastern and Western people combined, the European versus the so-called Africanozoid, or the Alkebulanian of the world, correct? The African geonome. The lunar people, they have more of a moon diet, correct? Dr. Africa also speaks about this. This is when you see them having the honeymoons, correct? Mooning. This is a lunar people psychological advancement. These people it was too hot during the day, so they usually came out at night. This is where the vampire code comes from. These individuals is the ones who usually turned into nocturnal hunters as well. This is where hunting really came from, other than climate, because we were vegans, we were vegetarians, we were either pescatarian sometimes, but we were plant-based beings for a large period of time all over the world, whether it was indigenous so-called Native Americans, or it was African people, or even so-called European people who were darker tinted, melanated people at that time too. So these lunar people was coming out at night. They were following the moon. This began for them to look over a lot of herbs, to look over a lot of plants and fruits. So they became hunters. But these lunar people, this is where the moon ideologies and mythologies come from. The solar people, the solstice people, the sun people, is the people who understood that the body was a rainbow, the body was electricity, and they needed to eat other substances that was charged from the sun, because the sun has a UV ray that produces and promotes carbon and melanin. When we start dealing with melanin, we start dealing with the melanin sites of the body. When we're dealing with melanin sites, these are responsible for recharging different centers, and this is when we start dealing with chakras. This is when we start dealing with kundalini energy, etc. So when these melanocytes is charged from the sun, which the plants is charged from the sun as well, this is when you get the electromagnetic currencies of the world. This is why plants have alkalinity inside of it, just like our bodies have alkalinity. So when you are recharging these centers, when you are recharging this frequency, this is when you become in optimal health. This is when you hear about people becoming transcendental people. The Eastern people or the Asian people call it meditation, but we call it transcendental. We call it trancing, correct? This is becoming an optimal being, a light being, enlightened, awakened being to the highest perceptive of a galactical or universal stage. Like I say, we understood that we had to eat the rainbow, so that's why you've seen a large amount of grapes, which was purple, and apples was red and green, and you also had the papaya, you had the mangoes, you had the kiwi, correct? We have to understand when we're dealing with things that is orange, the tint of orange is found in nature, but it is a different orange that we know of today. And the foods that we know of being orange was probably yellow or red at a certain point of time. But for whatever reason, Europeans developed love for beta carotene, and beta carotene is responsible for making foods orange. This is when you find the orange that we know of, the fruit. This is why you see it orange. When you see the carrot, this is why you see it orange. Not to debunk the nutrients or health factors or benefactors of these plants, but to say that they was genetically modified ancient times ago, and the color tone of orange has been mimicked. But it's definitely beneficial to have orange juice if it's concentrated, or even carrot juice if it's concentrated while you're on a fast. Beet juice is very beneficial. And different teas and tonics as well. And we're dealing with teas and tonics. We're dealing with ashwagandha. We're dealing with horehound. We're dealing with acacia, uvayerzi, white star, feverfew, mugwort. These herbs help the body regenerate itself, cleanse the body. Also fruit as well. You should try to stay away from vegetables, because vegetables are stabilizers. And this is if you have a complication. This is when I talk about crucifixus or cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, like cauliflower, like Brussels sprouts. You are supposed to eat vegetables or crucifixus or cruciferous vegetables when you have a complication like diabetes, osteoporosis, gout, arthritis, etc. This is when you're trying to cure the body and treat the body because it already have a complication. If you're trying to sustain optimal health, if you are already healthy, then you want to eat fruit, which will cleanse the body and keep the body from developing things like tumors and things like free radicals and toxins inside the bodies. See, what's happening is you have two cells inside of the body, and one is going one way and the other is going the other way, and it creates this frequency. This frequency is also compared to the melanocytes of the body that's recharging the electricity or electromagnetic currencies of the body, that's keeping the body healthy. Because if it is a destruction, or if it is a barrier or obstacle between this frequency, we are not getting the receptors for frequencies or notifications that the body has a complication. And this is when the body starts to ignore certain complications, dilemmas, or issues inside of the body. And this is how you get people who have cancer for 15 years without knowing it. This is how diabetes developed in 7 years. You don't have any symptoms of it until it's time to chop off a limb or get on insulin or something like that. So these are the 4 stages and the 4 steps of fasting. These are the benefits of it. And like I say, you should take an ashwagandha, you should take a ignatia, you should take a moringa, you should take a uvayerzi or a white star or feverfew while on these herbs, correct? You should take a burdock for the skin because you have to keep the body regulated while you are fasting. You don't want to neglect any organ of the body. This is how you become optimal health. And while you're going through fasting, You need to be sun gazing. You need to be connecting to earth by walking barefoot in the woods. You need to go through acupuncture or acupuncture. You need to go through cupping or different reflexology methods or practices as well while you are fasting. Aromatherapy and sound healing also sends the body a transcendental state and calms the body, and work on keeping the body cool and regulated. Because when you are fasting, like I say, going back to, it will start to go into a crisis mode and starts to send notifications to the things like the pancreas, right? And your pancreas will start to burn of a dissatisfaction, thinking that it's starving and thinking that it is missing a meal or just not digesting the correct way. The kidneys receive notifications. The adrenal glands kick off that adrenaline, and your body goes into flight mode. So it's important to take the mugwort and the burdock for the digestive system and the skin. It's good to take the things like the dong quai or the sun opener for the mind, the pineal gland, keeping the mentality and the mental state calm enough while you're going through your fast. And we can deal with intermediate fasting, correct? Not eating before 12 or after 9, or we can go on fasting for a full 24 hours. We can go fasting on a full 3 days, which I usually recommend to the person to go 3 to 5 days. This gives the body enough time to get rid of all of the excess bile or the excess toxins that's inside of the small intestines. This gets rid of the craving, which gives you a discipline factor, and this gives extra 24 hours for any cleaning or stabilizing that the body has to go through based off the juices that you're drinking or the herbs that you are engaging in while you are going through your fast. So in the same way you come in the fast, you should go out the fast, correct? So after you go through the dry or liquid stage of the fast and you're ready to break the fast, what you should do is you should go with a juice, correct? You should go back to the juice, or excuse me, you should go back to the one fruit. Eat the one fruit all day, correct? Get your body used back to a solid food. And then you should go to back to the juice for a full day. And then at this point in time, you should go back to regulating the combinations, to whatever combinations you started off with, you should end out with. And this is ending the fast correctly. Just like when we are born, we don't just be born and start eating solid foods, correct? A lot of the times we are going through a so-called fast while we are in our mother's womb, and when we are born, takes a little time for us to latch on to the nipple and to start getting our digestive enzymes that's on the tongue all the way to the gut correctly ready to start digesting, whether it's a liquid or a food. So you have to ease into fast and ease out of fast, just like you did when you were born. So these are the basic keynotes to fasting, correct? And another thing I wanted to speak about is a lot of people believe they're going to get too skinny. A lot of people believe they're going to start starving, correct? And like I say, all of these are myths based on European or Western science. But what's going to happen is you're going to start to lose weight. That's one of the first stages of fasting. But during the second week, if you were to fast for longer periods of time, let's say 30 days, like going back to the religious texts where they were fasting for 40 days or 70 days at a time. During the second week of the fast, this is where the pure energy of the body is going to be generated at. What's going to happen is you're going to have regulated natural weight. And this weight is going to decrease. And then once your body creates, remember I told you about the cells that one goes the one way and the other goes the other way. This is also responsible for the inner electromagnetic currencies that's going to create the electromagnetic environment inside the body to create pure energy. This pure energy is going to be responsible for pure weight. It's going to find the nutrients. You're not going to have to eat a regulated diet, eat or overconsume any foods to gain weight, your body is going to find any minerals, any electrolytes, any carbs, any protein that you have already presented to it over the years or over the correct methods and stages of fasting. We start understanding that calcium, protein, iron, magnesium, potassium is all critical as far as weight gaining and weight regulation. All of these vitamins and minerals are produced by plants. So if you are regulating the combinations and canceling collage eating in the body, then you are only eating one food, and your body will have enough time to take all of the nutrients, all the calcium, all the potassium, all the magnesium from that food, from that fruit, from that vegetable, if that's what you're engaging in, and will have enough time to take those nutrients and do exactly what it's supposed to do with these nutrients. So this is the importance of understanding when we are dealing with long-term fast, not to deal with the mythologies that we're going to start starving or we're going to start losing too much weight and start to gain anorexia and become anorexic, correct? So these are the basic steps. These are the basic stages of fasting. Like I say, this is an African genome based of information as far as solar people in the African genome goes. But this is a stage that, and this is a practice that we all can engage in, and this is how we become more healthier people, correct? The Europeans or the Western knowledge have been engaging in this for a long periods of time. This is why the European family eats their last meal at 5 o'clock. They usually have dinner around 6 o'clock. We used to make fun of them, but they understood the health factor of intermediate fasting. So the knowledge is out there in many different ways. The fasting is built into our DNA as well. Our body will, this is why we don't generate appetite sometimes as well, to not eat certain things. Sometimes, most of the times, the average American specifically, around 77 to 78% of Americans overconsume food every day on a daily matter. So this is the importance of fasting. These are the 4 stages and the 4 steps and the origin and the benefits of fasting.